Sup, boys? It's your boy Vigrid here, and as the resident TWoW autistic Shaman main, I feel I have to comment on the new TWoW Shaman changes. Somebody in my guild once said, they said, the best part about Project Epoch is all the great Project Epoch changes I'm going to see on TWoW. And I kind of agree. Or you could look at it the other way around as well, I suppose. I mean, I think competition is a good thing. I think iron sharpens iron, and I don't know. There's some things I'm reading here, and they sound a little bit familiar. Is all I'm saying. But maybe they had these changes in the works for a while. Who fucking knows? Yeah. So before I get into the trademark autistic detail, I'll give you the rundown. Winners and losers here. If you're an elemental or a shaman tank, you're eating good. This is a fantastic patch for you. They've gone above and beyond what I expected for elemental, frankly. My only complaint is that this is not the class changes to that. This is basically the class changes to that elemental should have had from the start, as far as I'm concerned, because Class changes 2 for Elemental, it felt like Vanilla Minus, honestly, with Electrify. And Electrify is fucking dead. Yeah, I'm spoiling that. So yeah, the winners: Shaman Tank, Elemental, and if you're an Enhancement DPS or Resto Shaman, you are a mild loser this patch. Your issues didn't get addressed, and you got nerfed. Get fucked. So, let's get into it without any further ado. The first change, I'll cover the baseline stuff. So, annoyingly, they've got a lot of changes under baseline changes that I consider more spec specific, but I'll talk about the ones I consider truly baseline. The first one is they increased the range of all totems that affect friendly targets by 10 yards. This is basically the talent. The 10-point talent in the restoration tree. It's basically been made baseline for all shaman. This is a good thing. It sucked while early leveling to have a 20-yard totem range, even for just like 5-man dungeons. It sucked being enhancement and just arbitrarily not being able to give like a hunter grace of air. Like it's just goofy. It's just stupid. Or you're on a fight. You're on some raid fight where you have to spread out, and your totem's just not covering you anymore. It's dumb. Yep, good change. Always should have been baseline 30-yard range, in my opinion. And like the only other thing I consider like a truly like baseline change is grounding totem. So they've changed grounding totem to be better for people who have some skill issues. Okay, so it no longer breaks from grounding It now breaks after grounding a crowd control effect, and it has increased cooldown. I don't mind the increased cooldown. My perspective on grounding in PvP is this: it can be quite oppressive when you're doing node defense. When you're fighting around a static objective, so if you're fighting around like a flag in Arathi, or you're fighting around a flag carrier in Warsong Gulch, something like that, and you have time to pre-drop grounding, and a caster has to like clear the grounding, and then you get to drop a fresh one immediately after, so you're basically just blanking like 2 spells back to back. That feels distinctly oppressive. That feels distinctly like hard to play against and like rough for the caster. That's how I see it. Increasing the cooldown might help a bit with that. It's kind of hard to like see. It's harder to see 20 seconds into the future than it is to see 15. And but like breaking it on grounding a crowd control effect, to me this just reeks of skill issue. Just have you tried getting good? So there's already counterplay to this. The first piece of counterplay was the internal cooldown. So you could use a spell, like a non-committal instant cast spell, like, I don't know, a Warlock Curse, and they could ground the curse, and then you could just follow up with a fear and CC the Shaman. And then you could just wand the fucking all its totems and just stomp them all out while he's feared. Right? For example, right? So you could play around the internal cooldown on grounding, first of all. Like, the grounding would only get the opportunity to ground your spell again if it ate your crowd control effect and you just completely ignored it, and then it ate a second spell. And at that point, that's just like, isn't that just on you? Isn't that just bad? Like, isn't that just like get good? Like, skill issue? I don't know. That's how I feel about it. Other PvPers may disagree. I don't know. That's how I see it. You know, call me biased, whatever. So yeah, those are like the last of the baseline changes. Let's get into, we'll get into Elemental. So, Elemental got several improvements that I didn't even really talk about or necessarily go over on my Everything Wrong with Shaman video. Basically, they got a DPS cooldown. We didn't even ask for that. Making Elemental Mastery an actual, honest-to-goodness DPS cooldown is a good change. The old Elemental Mastery, it worked. It made sense when people were in shit gear or people were leveling, or like when the talents were first like thought of or conceived of by the original developers. But now that when people are running around in raid gear with like 25+% chance to crit, you know, getting one free crit isn't very impactful. So having 15% Fire Frost Nature damage boost and reduce mana cost by 20% for 10 seconds, that is a strong cooldown. I didn't even like ask for that, but that is actually fills a hole in the kit and is appreciated and lets us do burst damage on demand. The biggest problem with the kit that was resolved is Electrify. Electrify is dead, bitches. It is gone. Bye! Bye-bye! And it is, you know, now it's just Elemental Fury. We've got Elemental Fury back. We've got 200% spell crit damage back where it belongs. This returns us to our burst caster identity. And not only do we get that, baby, not only do we get the old Elemental Fury, but we just get an extra 10% damage boost on fire and nature spells with the new Elemental Fury as well. I don't know why not fire, nature, and frost. This is a weird inconsistency. I don't get it. Like, Frost Shock has the exact same coefficient, the exact same base damage as Earth Shock. It's intended you choose between the two based on the situation. That's how they were designed. Like, I don't know why. It's everything else is Fire, Frost, Nature. Convection and Concussion, Fire, Frost, Nature. Elemental Mastery, Fire, Frost, Nature. Elemental Fury, Fire and Nature. What? I don't get it. But anyway, new Elemental Fury, much appreciated. We're returning to our Burstcaster identity. Excellent. We're doubling down on the Burstcaster identity with the new Elemental Mastery. Excellent. Happy about that. They've made Elemental Fury 2 points. This is basically because they're consolidating the old Flame Guidance into new Elemental Fury. You'll get the 200% crit bonus on your fire totems on Elemental Fury, and you'll get the Flame Shock range on Call of Flame. So everything that used to be on Flame Guidance is now on Call of Flame and Elemental Fury, and Elemental Fury is now 2 points instead of 1 point, right? Like old Electrify was 1 point. So that is all good and appreciated. That's like the best parts. And now we're going, and oh yeah, here's the next best part is improve Molten Blast and improve Molten Blast. So this is fantastic and good for all the reasons I said it was good for Epoch. You get to deal with nature resistant and immune targets. You get to hard cast a spell that isn't nature, which allows you to do something when you are kicked, or bait kicks, or play around kicks. So this is necessary counterplay against interrupts, as far as I'm concerned, as well. And it is intended with the improved Molten Blast talent that it does damage based on how much of your Flame Shock it has left. It's intended, and it refreshes Flame Shock. So it's intended that with the improved Molten Blast talent, you can actually use that as like a baseline filler damage spell instead of Lightning Bolt. So it is meant to be a competitive option with Lightning Bolt. I don't know if its scaling can really compete, to be honest. Lightning Bolt scales very well because it is effectively a 3-second spell that's cast as a 2-second spell thanks to the really powerful talent support of Lightning Mastery. There's no other cast time reduction talent that reduces a cast by a full second and allows a spell to cheat that much on the coefficient as much as Lightning Bolt does. That's what makes it uniquely powerful when it comes to scaling. So I don't know if a Molten Blast will be able to keep up, but you know, it is a good addition and a good change. The only other thing that's weird about it, again, this is an element of inconsistency. You know, Frost Shock doesn't benefit from the new Elemental Fury. Well, this Molten Blast, it doesn't benefit from any threat reduction talent. The only source of threat reduction we can get is Elemental Shaman, reduces nature damage specifically, just nature, and it's in the resto tree. Just nature by 15%. So if we're using Flame Shock and Molten Blast, because let's say the target is nature immune, well then guess what? We're just going to have full threat. We're going to do mediocre damage and do big threat. And yeah, that sucks. Just a weird element of inconsistency. I don't get it. Like, don't get me wrong, a lot of these like elemental changes are really positive and really cool, but like there's still like niggling little weird things going on with them. I don't know why. And yeah. Convection and Concussion, it now affects all Fire, Frost, and Nature spells. I believe this also includes like Frostbrand and Flame Tongue, so you can even play around with some spell hand stuff with this. That's cool. And Reverberation now requires 3 points instead of 5 points. So the way they've shuffled our talents around, like, you want to get improved Fire Totems now as part of an Elemental rating build. We didn't really get Reverberation in the past unless we were going Tier 3, 8 out of 8, right? And we've got a new talent for improved Molten Blast, so we are losing some talent points here. But those talent points usually went into luxury talents anyway, like either Ancestral Knowledge or like improved Water Shield. So we are kind of going negative in talent points, and I do want to like recognize that. But at the same time, this is like not like a huge deal. What else was I going to say? Yeah, so like the improved Fire Totems, it now increases Searing Totem's attack speed by 20%. And this will actually make it competitive for like rating builds. So the way it is now, because Fire Totems are ass, and they scale like ass, the only part about improved Fire Totems I care about is actually getting off my Fire Nova. If I can get off my Fire Nova on the trash pack already without speccing into improved Fire Totems does nothing for me. But if it actually allows me to get it off before the trash pack like dies anyway, then I guess it's providing some value there. So I didn't even take improved Fire Totems in a rating build, but now I feel like I kind of have to because it will actually increase Searing Totem's attack speed. And I guess that makes sense because it's just like, the talent is literally called improved Fire Totems and it does nothing for Searing. That's kind of goofy. So that was a bit odd. I think that's a good change. And yeah, they crucially also made it so that Fire Totems now inherit the Shaman's spell critical and spell hit chances. Hallelujah! You know, the scaling of our Fire Totems is no longer crippled. So these are good changes. Molten Blast, good changes. DPS cooldown, good change. Elemental Fury, good change. Fire Totem scaling addressed, but there's still an annoying asterisk with this. Magma Totem still has a dog shit coefficient. Magma Totem is still barely worth pressing at all. Magma Totem is still fucking bad, guys. And I feel like they've basically given up on Magma Totem in favor of giving us this new capstone, Earthquake. And, you know, as cool as Earthquake is, the way you use Earthquake and combine it with Fire Nova, you will have extremely strong upfront burst AoE DPS, But our sustained AoE DPS is still going to be lackluster because Magma Totem sucks. And, you know, at first I was kind of salty about this. I was kind of like, you know, I'm kind of annoyed because it's kind of like, why fix old thing when we can introduce shiny new thing, you know? And it's just like, I don't really like that attitude. But I realized, wait a minute, you know what? I kind of like the identity of Elemental Shaman AoE being, we do upfront bursty AoE, and then our sustained AoE is kind of dog shit. So, I'm actually, all things considered, I'm actually okay with this. I actually think Magma Totem can continue to scale like ass, and it's just intended that we have these big bursts of like Earthquake and Fire Nova every 15, 20-ish seconds, right? And that feels more like appropriate to like the spec's identity. So at first I was like kind of conflicted about this Earthquake talent, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like really positive about it. So overall, you know, I think Elemental is in a really good place. There's still like some niggling issues, and like the spell pushback issue was completely unaddressed. We're still dealing with Eye of the Storm. It's going to be even harder. Like, it's pretty much unfeasible to talent for stable shields now as an elemental build because we're recommitted to more talents in the elemental tree because we've made like improved fire totems more attractive, right? We've added a new talent that takes 2 points, right? So I feel like stable shields is even more firmly out of reach as a anti-pushback option. And, you know, Eye of the Storm is still there. It still sucks. It's still going to get ignored by almost every shaman except maybe in PvP. Yeah, not happy with that at all. But generally speaking, really strong changes across the board. I can't really be too upset. Like, do I think Epoch Shaman is better? I do, to be honest, but it's more for like the general like raid wide stuff and that sort of quality of life on top of the. I will say that I think I will miss something like I think I will miss like Searing Totem being a part of our single target DPS playing Epoch, but on the whole I think I prefer Epoch Elemental Vision anyway. But yeah, Elemental's eating good this patch. Spell pushback is still an issue, and we have like weird inconsistencies with like the fire threat and like Frost Shock not benefiting from Elemental Fury, and there's pretty much, and we're being somewhat starved for talent points. That's really the only like negatives I could see here. All right, so Elemental's eating good. Let's talk about the other classes eating good while we're at it. Let's talk about Enhancement Tank. So Enhancement Tank, there's so many buffs to threat that I don't know where to begin. So we have, so Fire Totem's actually getting spell critical and spell hit chances. That'll actually be a Shaman TPS, like tank TPS buff as well, by the way, because they'll benefit from Elemental Devastation a great deal. It basically means that any level 60 trash back, you have a token 1% chance to be fully resisted. And against like 63 mobs, you can get like up to 12% spell hit just by having Elemental Devastation up from like your Searing hitting the boss. That's actually a significant like boost to like the TPS it'll generate for you. And then there's another threat boost. They just boosted the Rockbiter weapon threat bonus from 30 to 35%. And, you know, 25% of that as well will be boosted by the 2.5 set bonus. So it compounds that and makes it even more powerful. And then there's Totemic Alignment that got buffed to 90% from 60%. And then there's Spirit Armor just giving you 10% threat. And then there's Storm Strike giving you a nature damage bonus from 20% to 25%. And Weapon Mastery was changed to Element's Grace. Basically, instead of weapon damage and weapon strikes being increased by 10% by Weapon Mastery, you get 10% crit on like all your shocks and all your strikes. And shocks are a more significant part of the TPS profile than your auto attacks and your strikes. So getting 10% crit on strikes and shocks is going to be more of a big deal for tanking specifically because you're using a one-hander, not using a two-hander, right? So yeah, these are like several Shaman tanking TPS buffs. And when you sum it all up, single target, I think that you're easily doing 200 more TPS on any build you could think of, pretty much. Except for ones that use two-handers, because Spirit Armor, guys. Now, I just want to laugh about Spirit Armor. I just want to be like, this is really funny. This is really funny. It's so fucking funny that tanks are so brain-dead threat-brained. Like, they're so unbelievably threat-brained that they have to, like, save their players from themselves, okay? We just had to give you a threat buff while you're wearing a shield, so you idiots stop swinging a two-hander around and griefing your healers by dying in 2 crushing blows because you're dog shit at figuring out effective HP, apparently. I don't know, like, it's just running around with mail armor, no shield, lower HP, like, you're just the worst bear tank I've ever seen. Like, it's just atrocious. I don't know why the fuck people are running around with two-handers, okay? So I think it's so funny that they had to make this change to Spirit Armor, right? And I also want to note, like, it's not just single target threat. With Totemic Alignment, this is a much needed change, right? So I ran the numbers when I knew what... So before with bugged fire totems, I knew how often fire totems would be resisted and how often they would crit. So I could get a perfect estimation of, it didn't matter what gear you wore, I could get a perfect estimation of how often they would be resisted and all that stuff. And I compared it to Consecrate. And Consecrate, you know, it can't be partially resisted, it can't be fully resisted, but it also can't crit. So I asked myself, okay, how does it compare to Consecrate? And Stoneclaw and Fire Totems used perfectly on cooldown, so rotating Nova and Magma, did more TPS until you hit 138 spell power. And it was all downhill from there, and it went downhill fast, right? It went downhill fast because Stoneclaw is completely static. It doesn't scale with anything. Nothing you do can scale Stoneclaw, right? And Fire Totems scaled like shit because they couldn't get spell hit and spell crit. And, they barely got any spell power scaling. They still barely get any spell power scaling. So, Paladin would overtake you at 138 spell power. It's more reasonable for like a raid buff Paladin to be around 400 spell power, I'd say. And yeah, they would just roll and smoke you and absolutely shit on you on AoE threat. And it didn't matter like how much gear you built, specifically trying to boost your AoE threat as a Shaman tank. So this Totemic Alignment, it's a single target TPS buff when using Searing on like a boss. It's a AoE TPS buff. You will be like more competitive and more reasonable as an AoE tank now. I think that you're still outscaled hard by Paladin, but maybe they're just gonna band-aid buff you guys, buff Totemic Alignment over and over again, like every like raid tier or something. I don't know, like it's just like it's not a long-term like sustainable solution in my opinion, because of the complete lack of scaling on Stoneclaw and the lackluster scaling on the Fire Totems. But it is like, if they're willing to band-aid it every so often, it will actually work, I suppose. It is an option. Tank Shaman's eating good, man. Like, I thought they had enough TPS as it is to keep threat off all but the biggest pumpers in the game, which is Enhancement DPS and Survival Hunter. But now, they're easily doing 200 more TPS. Easily, I'd say. Shaman Tank. I, for one, welcome our new Shaman Tanking overlords. Everybody keeps telling me Shaman Tank is underpowered and Shaman Tank sucks. I don't know. When you realize that when you realize that the Shaman tank is just a better tank than you, and there's no reason for your other tanks to even play the game anymore. I hate to say I told you so, but I don't. I did. Fuck you very much. So Shaman tank's gonna be fucking amazing now. The weakest part of Shaman, which was threat, which I didn't even think was that bad for the record, has now been completely patched up. Oh, and also enhancing totems. You get approximately 0.45% more dodge from the Grace of Air buff. So you get the avoidance capping bullshit online just a little bit sooner. Yeah, Shaman tank is going to be pretty incredible. And we got a buff to Strength of Earth as well. That's cool. That's cool for like Shaman tank and Shaman DPS. But let's talk about Shaman DPS. So say it with me, guys. What's the biggest problem with Enhancement Shaman? It's the threat. It's always been the threat. It's always been the fucking threat. They generate too much threat for the damage that they're dealing. And why is that? Well, a big part of it is that shocks are not covered by calming winds. So there's just a big chunk of your damage profile that is not covered by calming winds. So okay, guys, I got a math problem here. Math problem for you to solve. Okay, what way? How can we find a way to nerf the DPS of a class? Okay, but also make their threat issues even worse. Okay, think about it. Think critically. All right, let's do. Well, here's how you do it. Okay, what you do is you make changes to the talent tree so that their auto attacks and like Wind Fury attacks and their like Storm Strikes and Lightning Strikes do less damage. But you find a way for their shocks that aren't covered by Calming Winds to do more damage. You guys think they would do that? Oh, that's exactly what they did. Oh, that's exactly what they did. Oh, okay. That's terrible. That's the worst thing you could possibly do to enhance DPS. Actually, that's amazing. Wow. And you did nothing. You actually changed Calming Winds, but you didn't increase the threat reduction from it. You didn't implement shocks into Calming Winds. You've just disabled the threat reduction when you have Rock Biter weapon active. I mean, that's a good quality of life. That's nice if you're like an Enhancement Shaman DPS who wants to like Spotlight as a tank for like one encounter without having to change specs. That's fair. I like that. That's a good change. But yeah, this is fucking atrocious. This is absolute fucking dog shit. Like Weapon Mastery being changed to increase the crit chance on shocks and weapon strikes, and means that your autos do less damage, your Storm Strikes and Lightning Strikes do less damage that are covered by Calming Winds, and the shit that's not covered by Calming Winds, your shocks, do more damage. And Storm Strike, this developer comment under Storm Strike is so troll. So, nature damage bonus increased from 20 to 25%. We're slightly buffing Storm Strike's bonus effect to move Earthshock higher in priority for Enhancement's damage dealing rotation. So they've literally said, we want to make Earthshock better for damage dealing. And it's like, but you've done nothing to address the threat that Earthshock generates? Like, what the fuck? What the actual fuck? It's so troll. It's so troll. So, I believe the loss of Weapon Mastery for actual, like, raw DPS is not insignificant. I think, like, just forget the threat for a second. If incoming trade deal, Weapon Mastery versus Element's Grace, I think you lose damage getting Element's Grace. Straight up. I think you lose damage getting Element's Grace. Okay? You will do less damage with Enhancement. even in a threat agnostic scenario, you will do less damage with enhancement. Yet you will do more threat because more of your damage is concentrated in shocks. Amazing. Fucking amazing. I don't think they've ever managed to do that. Is there a single patch in the history of the game where they have both nerfed the DPS of a damage dealing spec and made threat worse? Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Amazing. I also want to note, you know, they didn't do any weapon normalization for Storm Strike or Lightning Strike. That's honestly fine for enhancement DPS. Like, it's whatever. It's kind of a non-issue with the way that two-handed weapon progression works in raids. It can be an issue while leveling if you've got a particularly fast two-hander that you happen across and might want to have used, right? That has decent weapon DPS. But it's more of an issue for tank that weapon strikes are not normalized. So I do want to note that they didn't normalize weapon strikes. Some people complained at me when I talked about normalizing weapon strikes because they're like, you just want to nerf enhancement damage. It's like, no, like, I understand that just normalizing weapon strikes and not buffing the weapon damage of Lightning Strike and Storm Strike is a nerf to enhancement DPS. I understand that. I think that you should buff the weapon damage of those two strikes and normalize weapons just to make tanking weapon progression more like seamless and easy and more dependent on eye level and the DPS of the weapon as opposed to like the actual speed tier of the weapon. So yeah, I think it's notable that they didn't do that change either. But you know, maybe they just have a different philosophy on it. Maybe they have a reason why they want to not have Storm Strike and Lightning Strike normalized. Whatever, I can respect it. So yeah, enhancement DPS. Get mad. I would be mad, you know. And restoration. Alright. Big thing for restoration. They nerfed the healing power scaling on Chain Heal by 10%. This is actually worse than it looks. So when you think about it, the 71.42%, yeah, you get that coefficient on the first target of Chain Heal. But if it bounces, you effectively get half that, so 35.7 or some shit percent on the second bounce, and then you get half that again, so you know 17.75% on the third bounce. So like the total like cumulative bounces, you basically had just under the true healing coefficient of Chain Heal was about 125%. And now it's been nerfed so that it's about 107%, somewhere around there. So this isn't a 10% coefficient nerf. This is more like a 17% coefficient nerf. That being said, it's fucking strong. Like, it's really strong. You know, when you compare it to other classes, so for instance, Chain Heal, 107% coefficient on a 2-second cast time, talented, compared to like a Renew that gets 100% of its coefficient over 15 seconds for a 1.5 second cast time, but it's a hot and it's prone to overhealing. You know, that feels like a reasonable balance. You know, that feels like it's reasonably balanced. It feels like it's kind of like they're in a similar ballpark, you know. Regrowth is a base 2.2 spell, and that has a total coefficient of, I believe, like was it 74% or something like that when you add up the coefficient from both the ticks and the initial heal for a 2-second spell. I mean, you can boost it with Nature's Grace, maybe, like, I don't know, like, and you have the... So, you know, when you compare it to the other healing tools, this does bring it more in line with the healing power spell power coefficient of those other spells, right? When you think about like the time taken to deliver that level of coefficient, right? So I think it's going to be fine. It's going to be a net like 9% total throughput nerf when I ran the numbers, like 9.5%. And, you know, if I look at my HPS and compare it to the HPS of other healers and nerf my HPS by 9%, it seems pretty fair, pretty reasonable. Except, I just want to know, like, if we're going to nerf outliers in healing performance from vanilla, like Chain Heal, and like Tier 2 3-piece Chain Heal. We've lost Tier 2 3-piece Chain Heal, and we've lost spell power coefficient on Chain Heal. And that's fine. Like, it's a healing performance outlier. I can agree with that. But there's one other healing performance outlier I want to bitch about. Priest, 8 out of 8 Tier 2. 185% healing coefficient on a 2.5 second spell is ridiculous. That is absurd, okay? It's so absurd that it was competitive with like Tier 2 3-piece 71.42% coefficient Chain Heal, right? In terms of like time spent for like spell power coefficient done. Yeah, 8 of 8 Tier 2 Priest is just an extreme healing performance outlier. And if we're going to flatten healing performance outliers like Chain Heal, all I ask is that I feel like 8 of 8 Priest Tier 2 needs a look at, right? If Chain Heal is going to get the... Because I feel like 8 of 8 Priest Tier 2 is... It was the best healing performer in 1.12 vanilla. It was the best healing performer in CC1. It was the best healing performer after CC2. It is the best healing performer after this nerf to Chain Heal. Like, can we please do something about Priest 8 out of 8 Tier 2? Like, what the fuck? Right? That's all I have to say on that. Besides that, man, like, but it's not completely backbreaking for us. We're still going to be, like, competitive and still a valuable healer. This isn't, like, I'm not doom posting about restoration, okay? Improved healing wave. They've improved it by 0.25 seconds. So, you know, we're going to have a cast time of 2.25 instead of 2.5 after this talent before haste. Yeah, it's good. It's like appreciated to make like other tools a bit more attractive now that you're nerfing Chain Heal. But ultimately, I still think that the best option in a lot of circumstances is still going to be to press the Chain Heal button if I'm being 100% truthful. This will be pretty goofy with like 8 out of 8 Tier 1. Like 8 out of 8 Tier 1 is actually surprisingly powerful because it can proc Undertow multiple times and effectively give you infinite mana even when casting very aggressive high ranks. The problem with 8 of 8 Tier 1 is that the lopsided distribution of the bounces from 8 out of 8 Tier 1 means that you're usually overhealing your initial target and underhealing your secondary and tertiary target, right? So even with this buff, I don't know if it'll be like super competitive for like all but the most niche fights, but it will be really, really funny on like some tank healing fights like Resuvius and Patchwork where you're just pumping the absolute shit out of a single target. I think Shaman HPS is already really strong single target. They just never do it because Chain Heal is just such a powerful option, right? But when they're forced to like do it, when you like put them on Patchwork and you force them to just pump the absolute shit out of a target, they actually have very mana efficient, very high HPS, single target healing relative to other healers. It's actually pretty crazy. Healing Wave will now benefit lesser Healing Wave. Okay, cool, whatever. It's still going to use the same like place in the Shaman toolkit. It's not going to be worth it to like spam lesser Healing Wave. It's still going to remain an emergency spell for when time is of the essence. And be worse healing per mana and be worse healing per second than Healing Wave, but you know, it has its place, and it's nice that it will benefit from and apply Healing Wave now. Totemic Mastery, this is annoying to me. Can we buff like Water Totems? Water Totems suck. Like, they just have half the duration for no reason, which is annoying and inconsistent. Fucking Mana Spring is still a much more situational and weaker version of Blessing of Wisdom. Okay? It's restricted to a party. It has a positioning requirement. It has a 1 second duration. It doesn't just passively tick away as a buff that you can apply pre-pull. Okay? It's just inferior across the board, right? As far as I'm concerned. And, you know, Healing Stream, again, inconsistent duration. It overheals like 60% of the time because it's only party based. It doesn't smart heal across the whole raid or anything like that. Yeah, Healing Stream sucks. Nothing to like make those spells more attractive and feel more worthwhile to press. As a Restoration Shaman, I really dislike. Didn't remove the requirement to get 5 out of 5 restorative totems to get to improved chain heal, which is like a complete nonsense. You have to get improved chain heal. Yeah, this Totemic Mastery, it's so goofy because it's like you're going to get 24 seconds on a bunch of 2-minute totems. 2 minutes and 24 seconds, which is just a weird, uneven number that like upsets my OCD. And then you're getting 1 minute and 12 seconds on Stream and Spring. Can we just standardize Stream and Spring? Why are Stream and Spring... They're not that strong. Why are they 1 minute totems? I don't get it. Just... What? It's goofy. Duration of totems that affect friendly targets by 20% is like whatever. Mana... Just make the water totems 2 minutes, please, for fuck's sake. Amount of mana refunded by a totemic recall by an additional 15%. Whatever. That's the kind of mana refunding you get when you make a really weird edge case decision that you probably fucked up and like hit the wrong button or something. I don't know. Tidal Surge, they basically just made it less complicated. Okay, cool. Whatever, that's a nothing burger. It was unnecessarily complicated and did add a buff to your character with the buff limit in the 1.12 client, so I'm glad it's like been reworked. Okay. Basically, all you need to know about Tidal Surge is this. If you're casting on a target that has Healing Way stacks already, you get an average of 5% mana cost reduction. That's it. That's the whole talent. Is that so fucking hard to like... You read this shit, it's like words. Like shut the fuck up, nerd. Okay, all you need to know is that this is basically 5% cost reduction. I hate when talents are just like not clear, and you have to do a bunch of math just to figure out what they're actually worth. Okay, it's stupid. Okay. Spirit Link, good change. Instant casting and linking range is now reasonable at 35 yards. That's good. That'll make this actually like usable in several scenarios where it was just too niche before. Again, I went over this before. Isolated tank, I have to get really close to use it, and I want to stay at like 30 yards for some reason. You know, there was too many. It was a conditional spell as it is, and it still is conditional, still is hard to use, and still isn't as cool of a capstone as something like Earth Shield from Project Epoch, for example. But at least it's like got some serious quality of life features. You know, it's still not a true damage reduction. It is still just a damage redistribution effect. There's still going to be scenarios where I want to keep pumping chain heals or want to keep pumping healing waves, and I don't want to focus on casting Spirit Link. But at least this is more reasonable. So yeah. Overall, like restoration, I don't mind like I main restoration. I don't mind like taking a hit to chain heal as like a distinct healing outlier, but like at the same time you got to address the other healing outliers that existed in vanilla. If you're gonna actually make healing balance changes for once, which I'm appreciative of because I feel like healing balance changes have just been ignored since class changes 2 came out, and I didn't see a single genuine healing class balance change. Like, I saw like a few quality of life things being fiddled with here and there, but no like direct like buffs and nerfs to actual like healing spells, right? It's been the same class balance since 1.12 vanilla, pretty much. The classes that were good in 1.12 vanilla, still good now. The classes that kind of sucked in 1.12 vanilla, still kind of suck now. That's the way I kind of see it. Yeah, so, yeah, my conclusion. Elemental, Tank Shaman, eating good. Enhancement, what the fuck? Garbage. And Restoration, I mean, it always sucks to get nerfed, but like it's not an unreasonable nerf. It's not like I'm not like crying bloody murder. I'm not like, oh, you guys have killed the spec or anything crazy like that. I'm just kind of disappointed that they didn't do more with like Restoration to make its gameplay more interesting. You know, maybe give us like a kind of tidal wave sort of effect from like Wrath, so that we're kind of weaving between Healing Wave and Chain Heal. Give us a sort of, make our water totems feel cool and actually worthwhile to press. It needs like some spice, and making a super conditional 10-minute Spirit Link cooldown just ain't it, bruh. It just ain't it. And yeah, like, yeah. Anyway, that'll be all. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening.